I just got a tweet from one of my longtime viewers, Des Games, and he says, "Yo, DatBoyGuru, light tanks video challenge. Go. I kick your ass, boy." Alright. Hold my beer, let's go. Alright, today's video is about light tanks and light tanks setup. I'm going to divide this video into three sections, starting with low tiers, mid tiers and high tiers. Low tiers meaning tier 5s and below. Mid tiers I mean by tier 6 and tier 7s, and high tiers I would consider 8, 9s and 10s. Now if you're here for the first time, please do consider subscribing and giving this video a like. This is the best way you can help support my channel, and let me thank you in advance. Also, please, if you have any questions or any suggestions, please feel free to leave a comment in the description below. I am not a big YouTuber yet, so I will be able to respond to all your comments, even the negative ones. I am happy to have a discussion with you and share our knowledge together in this game. Now, also look out at the description below for the timestamps. Now if you click on the timestamps, you can skip straight to the topic or information that you are looking for without watching the entire video. That way you can be precise and search for the thing exactly what you are looking for. Also, from time to time on the top right of this video, you are going to see links to perhaps my light tank playlist or some special important videos that I have made in the past, maybe about how to shoot from undetected locations, how to abuse your camo mechanics, how to use bushes, light tank gameplay and so forth. So keep your eye out on the top right of the videos for those links. Let's get on with the video. Alright, here we are in the first segment of the videos, intros. I'm going to talk about the intro to light tanks and its strengths. Now, in case you didn't know, the motto of this channel is stealth, vision and mobility. I talk about stealth, vision and mobility all the time. These are the main characteristics of a light tanks. Now, light tanks, of course, they have a role in this game, and their role is of course providing information to their team, early information, because you know, they're fast. They can get to locations faster than enemy tanks getting into their locations. So they're going to be providing info, they're going to be providing spotting, they're going to be doing damage as well, because they have the mobility to flank enemies, go to the sides and do damage. And of course, one of their biggest roles is as a late game assassin. The real good light tank players always survive to the end, and they will always finish off those enemy tanks with low HP. You can finish them off with maybe a couple of shots, and you do that as a light tank, you are an assassin. So let's get into next the equipment, all the equipment that you're gonna need to use in this game mode. And we're gonna start with the top 3 here, which is as you can see, camo, binocs and toolbox. Now, camo equipment, these 3 equipment, camo, binoculars and toolbox, they are what we call removable equipment. This means this equipment can be purchased, mounted on your tank and removed, and then put on another tank demount it and put on another tank without any kind of penalty. You can move them anytime you want. The only problem is every time you move them, you need to do it manually. You need to demount your Camonet, your binocs, or your toolbox manually one by one, and then mount them to the next tank that you want to play in order to use them on a different tank. But you can demount them without gold, so that's the good part. Now there are modifications or mods that you can use to make this a lot easier, a one-click process. These mods are available. You can Google them, or you can use them in a mod pack. I do make a mod pack myself. I will leave a link to that mod pack. Go check it out and see what return equipment mod does for this purpose of moving around your equipment. Now let me explain to you what each equipment in this equipment list does. Now I've got a list of equipment here. You can see Camonet, binocs, and there's 5, 6, 7, 8, there are 9 equipment here. This is all the equipment you are ever going to use in light tanks. So let me explain to you one by one what they do. The first is the camouflage net. Of course, it costs 100k on whatever tank you use. It is demountable, free of charge. You can, like I said, it is the top 3 equipment here is free to move. It provides a percentage bonus to the tank's camouflage. So you heard it right. If your camouflage values, let's look at our tanks here. If your concealment value is like here, it says 24% camouflage value. When you use a Camonet, it's going to add another 10%, so another 2.4%, which means this is going to be a 26.5 or 27% camouflage value when it's mounted. How does the Camonet work? You need to be stationary for 3 seconds and then it turns on. If you have it mounted on your tank and you're driving into battle, it is not working. You can see at the user interface, the camouflage net is blackened, it is dark, and then when you stop the tank and you're stationary for 3 seconds, the camouflage net turns on. That's when it's active. That's when you are going to add 10% to your camouflage values, and it's going to help you conceal a lot better. That's how Camonet works. The next is binocular telescope. Binocular telescope, again, equipment that you can move around freely to any tank you want without any kind of penalty, without demounting it with gold. You don't need to demount with gold. It gives you a 25% view range to your current view range. Example, let's take a look at this tank. It has 421 view range. With binocular telescope, as you can see, I already have it mounted. Without binocular telescope, you can minus 25% out of 421. You are talking about more than 100 meters of view range you will lose in this tank. So we are talking about perhaps around 305, 310 base view range on my PZ1C. 421 that you see here is with binocular telescope mounted. So let's demount it and I'll show you what the base view range is right now. There you can see 337 is my actual view range on the PZ1C. With binocular telescopes plus 25%, it becomes a whopping 421. Next equipment is toolbox. Oh, did I mention binocular telescope is the same thing? It also turns on only after 3 seconds after you are stationary. If you WASD move your hull, it turns off. Wait another 3 seconds, then it turns on. Now let's move on to the toolbox. Toolbox, 25% to repair speed. This means if you do not have crew, like I don't have any kind of crew with skills here, don't have repair skills, it is going to repair a lot quicker when you have toolbox mounted on your tank. So 25% to repair speed. Very useful if you do not have repair skills in your tank. Now next we're going to move to equipment that you cannot demount without penalty. And this is the second row of this equipment: optics, rammer, GLD, V-step, vents, and the suspension. You cannot remove these from your tank without paying 10 gold. So what do they do? Optics adds 10% to your current view range. So let's say your current view range of your tank right now is, let's say it's 421. If I use optics in my tank, I will have plus 10%, another 42 meters of view range. So instead of a 421, I would have a 460 view range. So that's what it does. Now, coated optics gives you 10% view range, and it's permanent. You don't have to wait 3 seconds stationary to have it activated. It is constantly activated all the time. Now the next equipment is the gun rammer. Gun rammers for light tanks are fairly cheap, 200,000 credits for them. Now before I continue, let me mention all these tanks, all this equipment, this is the base price for these equipment. If you buy them straight up, you never buy them for these prices. The gun rammer, 200,000 credits, never buy them at 200,000 credits. Always wait for a sale. There's always an equipment sale every say 6 weeks. That's my rough estimate. Around every 6 weeks there is an equipment sale. That's when you buy these equipments, you save up your credits, and then you buy these equipment and you stock them up inside your stockpile, ready to use them for whatever new tanks that you have. And you can get them at everything here at 50% discount. So a gun rammer, you can buy it for like 100,000 credits instead of 200,000 credits. What does it do? 10% reduction to gun loading time. So if your gun loading time, where's your gun loading time? Here, your reload time. Let's say your reload time is 10 seconds. 10% means you're going to shave off 1 second off your reload time. Now, it works for a lot of tanks that have long reload times. Let's say if you have a reload time of 5 seconds. 5 seconds reload time, 10% of that means half a second you will save in reload time. Now, for faster reloading guns, like guns that reload in 3 seconds, 2 seconds, you're going to save 10%, which is like 0.3 seconds reload time. It is not going to be very effective if you have a very fast gun that reloads very fast. Gun rammers are not going to help very much, so bear that in mind. Not all tanks require gun rammers. The next equipment we're going to look at is the gun laying drive. What does the gun laying drive do? The gun laying drive helps you to lay your gun. 10% reduction to aiming time. That is really important because aiming time, some tanks, some guns aim 3 seconds, 4 seconds or whatever. If you save 10% of the time, it helps quite a little bit. Now, a little bit of advice for you. Gun laying drive, a lot of the good players do not use gun laying drive. They completely avoid gun laying drive. Instead, they will use vents. Now, I will tell you why in a second. Gun laying drive, it's best to use it on crew or tanks that have very little crew skills. If you have 0 crew skills, example this tank here, PZ1C, I do not have any skills in my commanders and my crew, I use a gun laying drive. It is very useful here for me, and as soon as this crew advances to 3 skills and above, I will replace that gun laying drive to vents. But I already have vents in this tank anyway. Let's say it's the tank that does not have vents. Okay, I will replace that gun laying drive for vents. I will explain to you in just a minute after I explain what the vertical stabilizer does. Next equipment, vertical stabilizers. Again, 500,000 credits, a lot of credits. Always buy them when you get them on sale. Okay, when you get them on sale, buy them. What does it do? It is a 20% reduction to accuracy penalties. What does that mean? It means your bloom is going to be reduced by 20% off the bat. So if your bloom is large, let me show you an example, very simple one. This is a picture I did for a video I made a long time ago from a 9.18 server, a bloom test. This is a test with coffee and without coffee in my 1357 grand final at the speed of 60 kilometers an hour. You can see the bloom with coffee. With coffee, by the way, is food. It does 10% better bloom, or better what you call it, accuracy penalties. So this is what 10% looks like compared to without coffee. So imagine now I'm using a vertical stabilizer that gives you 20% reduction in accuracy penalties, which means I'm going to add and make this circle another 20% smaller, which is going to make that aim a little bit better, a little bit, well, not better, but I mean it's going to shrink a lot faster, which means you are going to aim quicker. The circle is going to shrink faster because the circle starts off a little smaller than what it would be without vertical stabilizers and without food. So that's what it does. Now let me get rid of this out of the way, and now comes to vents. Now vents does the same thing. Vents adds 5% roll to non-specific skills training level percentages for all crew members. It improves most of the operating parameters of your tank, but note, it will be less than 5%. What it means is vents, what it does is vents improves every skill in your crew. So if your crew has 3 skills, 4 skills, 5 skills, it is going to be very beneficial for you to use vents as opposed to using vents on crew that has 0 skills. If you have 0 skills, you still benefit from the vents, but it benefits here in your main skills. Your main skills, let's say, is 100%. If you use vents, it will improve by another 5%. It will become 105% in your main skills. So that is why I advise you, if you have crew skills that are 3 skills or more, if you have let's say for example my LT432 that has 5-6 skills, you're going to use a vents. You want to use vents because this vents is going to boost each and every skill that my commander has, each and every skill that my gunner has, each and every skill that my driver has by 5%. And also my main skills here, as you can see, it is 122%. That's because I'm using not just vents, I'm also running food. I am also running mentor, which improves the skill of my other crew except my commander. You can see my other skills here, 134% main skills. So that's what the mentor does. But anyway, that's what vent does. Now the last equipment on this long-winded equipment breakdown is suspension. Suspension costs for light tanks anyway, between 20k for your low tier tanks up to 200,000 credits for your tier 8 and above tanks. What the suspension does, here's what suspension does. Let's say you have light tanks and you are just beginning to grind, and what happens is you are researching up and you invested your XP into the turret and the gun because you cannot pen anything, you cannot kill anything, so you want to improve your guns and your turrets, and you do that, but you can't mount them on your tank because the equipment is the gun and the turret is too heavy. You need the tracks. You need to upgrade your tracks and mount them onto your tank before you can upgrade your guns and your turrets. So what this does is when you use the suspension equipment, it means you don't need to use tracks for the time being. You can mount your turret and your gun for the time being, and you will have superior firepower, but you will lose 1 slot in your equipment slot here because you are running suspension. So that suspension thing is temporary. You use it for the time that you want to mount your turret and your gun immediately so that you have better firepower. And then once you accumulate more combat experience, then you will then upgrade your tracks, remove that equipment and upgrade your tracks so that you don't need to run those suspension equipment any longer. Now let's move on to the next thing that I wanted to talk about. That was really long, right, talking about equipment. Now let's talk about food. Food adds 10% to all your crew skills, like I mentioned earlier in that picture of that bloom I showed you. It adds 10% to all your crew skills and perks. Again, the more skills you have with your crew, the more you will benefit from food. So you're going to earn 10% more to whatever each. If you have 7 skills in your commander and you have another 7 skills in your driver, each of those skills are going to increase by 10%. So it's going to boost your aim time, boost your mobility, it's going to boost your concealment, it's going to boost your view range, it's going to boost everything by 10%. So food is really important. Again, food is 20,000 credits if you buy them, but look at how many I have, 340 plus food. I always buy them in bulk and I always buy them on sale. Every 6 weeks, like I said, there is a sale. Buy them for 10,000, stock it up and use them wisely. Now let me carry on. We were talking about equipment, right? Food, remember to buy them on 50% sale. I actually have a script here, so I'm trying to keep to that script. Now I also want you to remember that you need to focus on these parameters. The only 4 parameters that matter, I'm going to show them to you right now. This is the parameter, your reload time. You want to always remember your reload time on whatever tanks you are using. You want to also know your aim time on whatever tank you are using. On this tank, 1.29 seconds. The other 2 parameters that are super important in light tanks is what is your concealment value in your current tank and how can you increase it. And the next parameter is your view range. Always remember, always need to know what are the parameters of your current tank. So remember your parameters: view range, concealment value, your reload time and your aim time. These 4 parameters you must know at the back of your head. Okay, let's go for a break. Alright, now let's talk about accelerate crew training. Now this accelerate crew training on top of your crew, what it does is when you have it checked, it means all your combat experience in this tank, after every game you play, all the combat experience will go to your crew and boosting up your crew skills. So this is especially important when you have a very low crew skills, okay? But you can only accelerate your crew training after you have completed researching everything on the current tank you're playing. Once you've completed researching and you research your next tank, immediately you are going to see this accelerate crew training checkbox will appear in this tank. It will only appear after you've completely researched this tank, and after you've done that, make sure you accelerate crew training so that you can train up this crew very quickly. Also, you can use boosters. Remember that boosters are personal boosters. You can buy them, you can acquire them, you can learn, you can earn them. Personal boosters, I have tons of it. Always turn them on when you are playing so that you can accelerate your crew training. Next up, also you can boost your crew skills by buying crew books. Crew books cost 2 million each. You can also earn them if you want, but if you want to buy them, you can buy them. They cost 2 million each, and when you buy them and apply them to your crew need to be 100% trained first before you can apply them. But if you apply them to a crew, each crew book that costs 2 million credits earns you about 1.5 experience, 1.5 skills. If your skills, if you start at 0 skills, right, about 1.5 skills you will earn from one crew book, and if you use 2 crew books, you're roughly about 2 skills you will get. So it's going to cost you 4 million to get 2 skills for each of your crew if you use crew books. I have a separate video for that. Please look at the top right again and click on it if you want to watch and learn more about how to buy and apply crew books. The next thing I want to talk to you about is Camo Paint. Now, Camo Paint is crucial for light tanks. Again, stealth, vision, and mobility. Part of stealth is using Camo Paint. Now, how do you do this without breaking the bank? Theoretically, you only need 1 camo paint to apply to 1 tank of 1 nation. You can reuse this camo paint. You can reuse this camo paint on all your German tanks, and you only need to apply it on your hull. It costs 50 gold if you buy it, 50 gold, and theoretically you can just buy 1 and apply it to 1 German hull, and it can apply to all your German hulls, all your German tanks hulls, whatever, light tanks, heavy tanks, TDs, any tank, and it will register as camouflage for your tank, that particular tank. The only caveat here is every time you change tank, you need to demount it from this tank and apply it to another tank. Now, there's a workaround for this, again, by using a mod. The mod is called Follow Camo mod. You can Google it, you can download it, you can download it individually, you can download it as a mod pack. Of course, I offer this mod as well in my mod pack. You can click to the link to that mod pack. It is included in that mod pack. Theoretically, you can just use 1 camo for 1 nation, and it will only cost you 50 gold for each nation. So it's a very cheap way of doing it if you are a free-to-play player. So anyway, that is my advice on Camo Paint. You always go into battle with Camo Paint in your tank, because Camo Paint adds what is the percentage? Oh my god, I actually forgot how much camouflage value it adds. There you go. It adds 3% bonus to concealment to camouflage. So for this tank, it adds 3%. So every tank that you add camo to your tank, it will add another 3% to your concealment values. So that means this tank, let's say it's 20% with camo, it was 17% without camo. It makes a big difference. It is the difference between being spotted and not being spotted. And next up, let's talk about crew skills. Stealth, vision, and mobility. Crew skills are the most important thing for your light tanks. The first crew skill you want to train in any light tank, new tank or old tank, always start with your camouflage skill. Start with camouflage skills. For your commander, you can go with your 6th sense skill, because 6th sense is really important. After a few games, you will get it to 100%, and then your next skill for your commander should be camouflage skills. Your 3rd skill, your 2nd skills and 3rd skills, you always want to improve your either your stealth, your vision, or your mobility. So you are always going to be doing your camouflage paints first. Now if you look at my tanks with 5 skill crew. You can see BIA is first. That is because I retrained each and every one of these crew. When these crew started off with nothing, 0, the first skill I learned for them is camouflage skills, always concealment skill first, and for the commander, the 6th sense skill. And then the next skill for the commander I would pick would be the concealment skill or the situational awareness skill. The situational awareness skill adds view range to your commander. It adds view range to your tank. It means you can see further. It means you can spot better. Also for the commander, the recon skill is the same as the situational awareness skill. It also adds view range to your commander and to your tank. So sometimes the situational awareness skill is not in your commander, but instead, like for example in the German tanks, and let's go ahead and watch on the German tanks, the situational awareness skill perhaps is not in the commander. Let's see if it is in the commander. It is in the commander on this tank, but on some tanks it is not in the commander, but it is on this one. It should be on the radio operator or the loader. So let's check it out. On this German tank, it is not on. It is on the commander. I'm sorry, but what I wanted to show you was some tanks it is on something other than the commander. Sometimes it is on the radio operator, and sometimes it is even on the gun loader, which is really weird, but it happens. I don't know why they do this. Here's an example of the situational awareness skill being on the gun loader instead of, like this tank, I don't think it has a radio operator. That is why it's on the gun loader. And some Russian tanks have it on the commander itself. So this is one of the irritating things that World of Tanks does. What happens is it makes you spend gold to retrain this crew with the situational, move those skills around from your commander to your radio operator or your gun loader. You have to switch responsibilities when you move those crews around, when you retrain those crew for a different tank or to a higher tier tanks. They switch responsibilities, and this makes you have to spend gold or have to spend credit. That's one of the ways wargaming makes you sink your credits and sink your golds, but that's how it works. Now let's move on. We have covered a lot in equipment and crew training. And now we are going to move on to tier 6 tanks. Here we go. We are in tier 6 tanks, and what I wanted to talk about tier 6 tanks, now let me take a look at my notes. Tanks like the I wanted to talk about the 5916 and the VK and the Type 64 was what I was going for. Now you notice one thing that these couple of these tanks do have in common is that some of these tanks do not have a gun rammer. Here's one of the examples. This is a Type 64. This Type 64 I am running. Am I running gun rammer in it? No, I'm not. I'm running optics, gun lane drive, and I'm running a vertical stabilizer. I am not running any rammers in my Type 64. And why am I not doing that? This is because the gun reload time on this tank is 2.96 seconds. If I ran a rammer in this tank, it would only improve the aim time by 0.30 seconds, which means I'm going to reload at 2.7 seconds instead of 2.9 seconds. So what's the big deal? Why do I need a rammer on a fast loading gun? I do not need a rammer, so instead I run a gun lane drive. Now Type 64s do not have a great aiming time. In fact, if you look at the dispersion, 0.36, and that is why I run a gun laying drive. It helps to aim a little bit quicker, helps me to make more of my shots, and that's why instead of running a rammer, I run a gun laying drive. But instead in my VK, I do run a gun laying drive, and why I do run a gun rammer here in this tank. And why do I do that? And I think I do that because the reload time is slower. Let's look at the reload time, 3.3 seconds. So which means if I didn't run a gun rammer in this tank, this would be, you are talking about a 3.6 3.7 seconds of gun loading time here. So that is why a gun rammer is warranted in this tank, and that is why I wanted to show you this variety in gun rammers between some tanks and some tanks without gun rammer. Now in tier 6s, your gameplay is a little bit different. In tier 6s, you are going to experiment more with playing with food. You are going to be a little bit more aggressive as opposed to lower tiers. In lower tiers, you are going to use a lot more binocular telescopes, because you are going to be stationary more. In lower tiers, because you do not have the cruise skills, you have beginner cruise skills, you have 1 cruise skills or 0 cruise skills, you have no money to buy equipment, you only have that binocular telescope, you are going to be stationary a lot in tier 5s and below. But in tier 6, you are going to start to become more competitive. You are going to be starting to be more aggressive. You are going to lose those binocular telescopes. It is at tier 6s that you begin to stop using the binocular telescopes. You're going to stop using the camouflage net. You are going to stop using the toolboxes. By the time you reach tier 6, you have already been invested in permanent equipment like the V-stabs, the optics, the vents. By this time, you have already established yourself as a kind of like a medium experienced player. So by tier 6, you are expected to contribute to the victory of the team. You need to start to be a little bit more aggressive. Your gameplay starts to change. You are more aggressive. You are running optics all the time so that you have 10% increased view range permanently, no matter whether you move or you don't move. You are losing that what do you call that, passive spotting, I would say. With that binocular telescope, you are going to be more active, you are going to be more mobile, you're going to be moving a lot, so you're going to be starting to be more aggressive. This is mid-tier games. Some of the best light tank gameplay comes from tier 6 and, in my opinion, tier 7s. If you play the Type 62, if you play the 1357, these are the best light tanks to play tier for tier. It is one of the most fun gameplays that you will have in tier 6 and 7s. Let's move on to the high tiers. Alright, here we go. We are talking about high tiers now. In high tiers, you are super aggressive. You are Big Daddy. You are knowing what you are doing. You have all the crew skills. If you did not already train your crew skills by grinding up your tanks, if you do not have 3 skills, 4 skills and 5 skills, you would have bought them. You would have accumulated the credits to buy crew books and train your crew up to 3, 4, 5 skills, because at tier 8s and above, it is a totally different kind of gameplay. You are bringing all your skills that you have learned in the low tiers and mid tiers, and at tier 8, 9 and 10, this is where you are bringing it all together. This is when you are going to shine. This is when you are going to start to flex your skills, flex your experience. This is where you are also going to experiment a lot. You are going to try new positions. You are going to try different kind of equipment setup. Now sometimes some really experienced players, they even run double optics, like not just 10% optics, they also run a binocular telescope together with optics. Now it is not common, it is very specific. If you know exactly what you are doing, some players do that. Some players, like famous players, even Skill for LTU does this with his tank destroyers that have mobility, like the T-78, the Hellcats, the Jacksons. Instead of running instead of running gun improvement equipment, he's going to run optics and he's going to run binocular telescopes. Do not be afraid to try them out if you want to. Some people do it. I myself do not run optics and binocular telescopes together with my light tanks. I always just run optics or just run binocular telescopes, but I'm just giving you an example. Don't let people judge you. Do what you want to do. Find out what works for you best. Be open to experimentation. At tier 8, tier 9, tier 10s, you have a bigger responsibility. You have a bigger role to play. You have higher combat capability, which means your tanks do a little bit more damage now, although it is still very little damage compared to other tanks of the same tier, like medium tanks and heavy tanks. Even in tier 10 light tanks, the maximum they do is 390 damage. In case you didn't know, the tier 7 IS-2 shielded, the one that is they're giving away right now in the road to Berlin, that tank does 390 alpha at tier 7. So in tier 10s, your light tank, your Manticore, your Sheridan only does 390 alpha at tier 10. So they still do not do a lot of damage, but you are expected to be more productive. You have bigger responsibilities, but also along comes with bigger responsibilities, you get bigger satisfaction ratio as well. That's what I like to call it, bigger satisfaction ratio, which means even though you are a light tank, people do not expect you to carry the game. People do not expect you to do a lot of damage. People do not expect you to do big things in light tanks, because light tanks have very low survivability rate. It's very hard to play well in light tanks. They have a very high skill cap, but the satisfaction is also much greater in light tanks as opposed to versus a example, a Chieftain or a 279E. When you are playing those tanks, 279Es and Chieftains, you are expected to do well. You are expected to carry. You are expected to do 7,000 damage. You are expected to lead the team to victory. There is a lot of pressure on you, but on light tanks it's very different. On light tanks there is less expectation of you. In fact, light tanks, people do very poorly in them. Therefore, your expectation values in the WN8 levels, expectation levels are very low in light tanks. So if you do play well in light tanks, you can expect to earn 15,000 WN8, 20,000 WN8, insane amount of WN8 when you do well in your light tanks in tier 8s, tier 9s and tier 10s, and therefore this gives you an incredible amount of satisfaction. That's why I say the satisfaction ratio is very high when it comes to light tanks. You feel like your penis exploded, you know, that kind of feeling that you get, euphoric feeling when you achieve what you want to in a light tank, and that is one of the biggest rewards you can get when you are playing a light tank and when you are successful in a light tank. Also, of course, you get higher rewards like I mentioned earlier, because the skill cap is so high. When you do well in light tanks in high tiers, you end up earning a lot more respect, you earn a lot more WN8, and if you want to pad your stats, that's the way to do it too. So I hope you got something out of this video and learned something important about skills and how to prepare your equipment and how to use or how to improve your gameplay. This is a long-winded video, but I try to cover everything I can. Of course, please click on the links to watch the other videos if you want to learn about gameplay, light tanks. Also, you can follow my playlist. All my light tank playlist videos are there. You can watch them and hopefully you can learn something out of it. And let me thank you, and I will see you on the next video. Bye bye.